There are things in life we know disturb us, yet somehow the mind keeps returning to them. A memory we should have forgotten, a thought that drains us, a person who hurt us, an old wound that never fully leaves. Even after suffering through them many times, something inside quietly goes back. Why? Why does familiarity sometimes feel stronger than peace? Sometimes an experience ends in the outer world, but continues silently within us. The moment is over, yet the mind keeps returning to it, almost as if it cannot let it go. A single sentence repeats for days. A disappointment survives far longer than the event itself. An old hurt quietly becomes part of our inner atmosphere. And after a while, we stop noticing the repetition. We begin to mistake familiarity for identity. We think we are choosing our thoughts, but many thoughts arrive from habits already living within us. Ramakrishna once described the human mind through a disturbing image. A camel in the desert chewing thorny bushes. The thorns cut its mouth. It begins to bleed. Yet the camel continues chewing, not because the thorns nourish it, but because it has become accustomed to them. And perhaps the human mind is not very different. What repeats inwardly for long enough begins to feel strangely natural. Even suffering can become familiar, and the familiar often feels safer than the unknown. And perhaps this is why certain forms of suffering stay with us for so long. Sometimes the mind continues returning to what wounds it, simply because the wound has become familiar. And somewhere in this image, many of us recognize ourselves. Over time, the mind does not merely return to certain experiences. It begins to live inside them. A person may carry anxiety for so long that calm starts feeling unfamiliar. Someone may hold on to an old hurt for years until suffering quietly becomes part of how they see themselves. And perhaps this is why certain patterns become difficult to leave behind. What repeats inwardly for long enough slowly begins to feel personal, familiar, even natural. And after a while, we no longer ask, "Does this bring clarity?" We only ask, "Does this feel like me?" And perhaps this is why simply understanding ourselves does not immediately change us. A person may clearly see that a certain attachment is hurting them, yet the moment loneliness appears, the mind reaches for it again. Someone may promise themselves they will let go of an old resentment, yet one memory is enough to awaken it completely. Even when we recognize what disturbs us, the inner movement toward it can continue automatically. Because the mind often moves through habit before wisdom, through familiarity before awareness. And perhaps this is why spiritual teachings place such importance on observation, on becoming conscious of what the mind keeps returning to again and again. But Ramakrishna's teaching was not meant to condemn the human mind. It was meant to reveal something honestly. Sometimes suffering continues not only because life is difficult, but because inwardly we remain connected to what hurts us, not deliberately, not consciously, but habitually. And perhaps real inward change begins the moment we quietly ask, Why does this pattern still hold me? Without judgment, without self-hatred, simply observing. Because what is deeply seen slowly begins to loosen. The camel continues chewing the thorn, even while it bleeds. And perhaps human beings are not very different. Sometimes we keep returning to certain thoughts, memories, or wounds, not because they bring peace, but because the mind has lived with them for too long. But familiarity is not the same as peace. And perhaps a real change begins quietly, the moment we stop mistaking old pain for who we are. If this reflection resonated with you, you may subscribe to this channel to explore more timeless wisdom here, not as stories of the past, but as mirrors for our own lives. Om Tat Sat.